So yeah, once again, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We do appreciate your time. I'll do some quick introductions. So if we haven't met before, my name is Andrew Sinclair and I'm the Business Development Manager for Total Water Solutions. And I'm joined today by Rachel Robinson and Josie MacArthur, who are our technical agents who deal with basically all the planning of work and would be your point of contact within Total Water Solutions for any chlorination and pressure testing. Normally what we do is Rachel sort of covers our northern area and Josie covers the southern area, but they do kind of cover each other's areas as well. So you might get to speak to both of them if you're very, very lucky. We're going to go on to the presentation now. Again, it's one of those interesting things where you're going to hear a lot of government type ones. Where it's next slide, please. Josie's steering the presentation for us today to allow me to sort of see the questions and get those answered as they come through. And hopefully this presentation will be at least as delightful as England's win last night if you were supporting England, and if not, hopefully you don't commiserate too much and everybody's got a clear head. Okay, so Josie, if you could just click next slide, please. Yeah, so one of the things that we get asked a lot is kind of who we are and where we sit. So this is a bit dry, but I'll tell you the sort of the whole story because it helps where we fit in within the business. So the legal entity is Northumbrian Water Limited. That's the company, and what it does is it uses two brands. It uses Northumbrian Water in the northeast of England, and it uses Essex and Suffolk Water in the southeast of England to provide water and wastewater services. So depending on which area you're from, you'll recognise those two brands of the Northumbrian Water, Essex and Suffolk, with that living water tag underneath it. NWG Total Water Solutions is the brand that NWL, the legal entity, uses to provide commercial services to non-household customers. We're the commercial team of Northumbrian Water, and we're based in our sort of traditional supply areas, and the branding that we use is that NWG Total Water Solutions. So we're part of the water company, but we do commercial work, so we're not tied in directly with the core business around the supply of clean potable water or the taking away of wastewater and treating that. The other thing to really kind of point out as well is we are not the developer services team, and we would be treated like any other third party, and obviously that's to do with the sort of regulations and competitions sort of rules that we've got to follow being a monopoly institution. Next slide, please, Josie. There we go. So yeah, you may be familiar with where we're based, but if not, sort of on the left-hand side, that's our Northumbrian Water region, and you can probably just about see that little purple circle. That's our Durham head office, which is based, which is the Bolden House office at Arneson in Durham, and then on the Essex and Suffolk one, you'll see that purple one there. That's our Hanningfield head office, which is based near the reservoir in Essex. Next slide, please, Josie. When we were talking about Total Water Solutions, our sort of tagline on what we're trying to do is we're trying to support businesses and other non-household customers. So think local authorities, charities, things of that nature, to take a strategic approach to water. So we do that in three main areas. Compliance, which obviously chlorination and pressure testing fits into, and we also do quite a lot in the sort of Legionella space as well around compliance and management. Excuse me. We also look at usage, so we try to help people reduce the usage and reduce the costs, and that's both in water and effluent. So as you can imagine, it's quite it's a thing that water companies are quite passionate about, not using water if we don't need to. And the third bit's around infrastructure. So we basically assist customers to look after their private networks, a bit like the water company does, but on people's private side. So that also includes sort of leak detection, pipe repairs, and also installations on the private side. Next slide, please. And again. So we're going to look at the developer cycle. So you might notice sort of a new connection, but we're trying to look at this as a cycle. So what we've done is we've looked at the whole process, and we've tried to break it down into a kind of a more like a sort of generic life cycle where we could talk about the different points and then where chlorination and pressure testing fits in. Josie, could you just click that one more because I've still got the purple slide up. So the first point of contact with the developer team would be to submit your applications, which you can get obviously from the websites of Northumbrian Water and Essex and Suffolk Water. Once you've filled that in and you've submitted that to the developer services team, what they'll do is they'll do a review of that information to find out if and where you can connect to the main. Now, that might involve a site visit, it might not. It just depends on the way that work is carried out. From that point, you'll then get your information pack back from the developer team, the developer services team, and then you would be in a position where you'd be looking to procure or get your subcontractors or your own staff on site to lay the mains and supplies that you need as part of that project. Unashamedly sales pitch, we could do that for you if you're interested. Once those have been installed and they've been sort of put into the ground, what would then happen is there would be an inspection from an NWL, so whether that's Northumbrian Water, Essex, Suffolk Water technician, just to make sure that it's been signed off from a kind of water regulations perspective and they're happy. I think one of the main things to probably talk about is there's rules and regulations around how to do all these things, and we will get onto that. But just remember that the water company is technically the authority in this case. So if they say, no, I'm happy with that, then that's fine. But what you might want to do is just say, could you confirm that in writing? And then you've got it. And vice versa. If I ask you to do something which you may feel is above and beyond, they've still got the kind of right to ask you to do that, because their main job is to protect the actual water network itself. So Josie, I don't know if you want to click, and you might have to click a couple of times, but we'll see where we can get through. Oh, there we go. See, there's my lovely purple animation, which seems to have paused. Never mind. And then what we're going to do is from this point, once they've been inspected, we're going to move on to the next one, which is where you need where you'll be informed at some point. That's something that's really important. You'll be informed either through the pack or through the site visit that you require one of these as part of the process. So just bear that in mind. That's when you should find out. If you haven't heard anything from your site contact, if you've had a site visit, check your paperwork, because it'll be in there to say whether or not you need one for this particular project that you do. So I'm going to pass over to Rachel now, and Rachel's going to kind of talk us through the chlorination and pressure testing processes.
Right, so yes, we're going to cover why you need a chlorination and pressure test. Many of you will know that a pressure test is needed to check the integrity of the pipework, so check that it's airtight and that there's no leaks on it. And obviously a chlorination is required to make sure we've got safe drinking supply for the end user, so the consumer. But also we must remember that we're connecting into the mains company water supply as well. So this is really to minimise any contamination back into that. Next slide, Josie. And hopefully it moves quite quickly.
That's good to see.
So yeah, so we created this flow diagram which helps identify whether you need a chlorination and pressure testing, and it's for both new and existing supplies. And as a rule of thumb, and in accordance with water regulations, it'll let you know if you need a chlorination or a pressure test. So on a new supply, you will need a chlorination if the supply has an internal diameter greater than 50 millimeters, if the supply is longer than 50 meters in length, if the supply has been isolated or left longer than 30 days, because that can go stagnant as well, so we need to make sure that that's cleared. And also one which isn't on there, but it is your responsibility, is if you suspect that there's some can't even get my words out, contamination has gone into the pipework, so if cap ends have been left off and soil or debris got in, and also if you've got any concerns over how the pipework's been installed, it's best to get it chlorinated. And then on the other side, you've got the existing. So this is if you're going for a new connection, that's on an existing premises, but it's already been connected to what we would call a non-Northumbrian Water or Essex and Suffolk supply. So something like what that says there, raw water, spring supply, or a borehole. And then you need it chlorinated. And then further down, we'll come to why a pressure test is required. And basically, the main criteria is if there's more than one joint in the pipework, and that will be required. So we've tried to simplify this as easy journey as possible, so that you can pick up when you don't actually need one. But although it'll be part of the webinar pack, like Andy said earlier, it is just a guide. So always go off what you officially get in the pack, and we'll come to that in a minute, from developer services and also from your site visit, because it might be quite a complex site and you might get asked for some additional things. So go from there. Next slide, Joss. Again. Yeah, I can see it's coming through, yeah. And again. And actually, what I didn't mention on the chlorination process is part of that process, a sample will be taken and tested and sent off to our UCAS accredited lab. And as a rule, it is one sample every 200 metres. I know sometimes with sort of housing developments, you try and keep it well within that guide, but you tend to find these sort of in rural areas as well. So it's just a reminder there that every 200 metres you need another sample taken. So the how, well, the why and the how is very much interlinked, to be honest with you, because of the regulations. So the how is pretty much how the actual chlorination and pressure testing, when we're on site, what needs to happen, the process that you need to go through. And obviously I'm not going to go into detail. There is very strict criteria that needs to be followed due to the regulations. This is what's up on the screen now, actually, and this will be very similar to what you'll receive in your pack. It does vary sometimes in terms of if they've been updated, but the Regulations Act 1999 will always stay the same. And as you see, there is a lot of regulations, but that's where we can come in and help and take away the headache. So Josie's going to chat with you in a minute about sort of the process of it and what we can offer. Over to you, Josie.
Okay.
Rachel, just a quick question on the lab results. How long does it take to get those back?
The labs generally, and I think we'll both work the same north and south because the both the UCAS accredited labs, their turnaround, what am I looking for? Service level agreement is 10 working days, but actually there's very rarely I've had to wait that long. Although there is differences north and south because of the water composition, you will always get them, I think, within 5 days. I mean, obviously I don't want to say that and then somebody comes and says
somebody goes 6.
But yeah, so the service level agreement's 10 working days, but I mean, I've been here for 12 years and basically they've always turned it around really quickly. So I definitely within the 3 to 5 days. It does have to sit on a plate. So you cannot physically chase a result until they've come off the plate, and then they have to go through validation. So yeah, about up to 5 days max.
Cool.
Okay, we now go forward to the actual request form. So if you contact Total Water Solutions, we will send this form out, which I think is just about trying to open up for you.
I can see it, Josie, it's fine, yeah.
Yeah, good. Basically just contact details, and then we just need pipe diameter, material length, and whether there's any sample ends. And also just if there is an available water source, either whether if you've got a standpipe on site or temporary connection, or if there is a hydrant off the existing main. And this is the criteria we would then send through to our contractor to price up for you. In some instances, they may want to do a site visit if there's several pipes or it's a slightly more complex site. The only other thing to say is this is required if we're just requesting to do a pressure test chlorination on its own. If you've actually come to us to actually install the private pipe, the chlorination element would have been costed in the original quote, and we would cover this, so you wouldn't actually need to do an actual separate application. So we will obviously get the costs back to you. Once you've accepted the quote, we then have to provide you with an analytical sample report. So from the sample, that would be submitted through to our lab, which will test for the various elements, i.e. E. coli, coliforms, turbidity, just to make sure that the water taken from the supply is wholesome and obviously is compliant with our water regs and water quality. So that will be sent through, as Rachel has previously stated, within around about 5 days, and north and south can be slightly different, but obviously our standard is 10 days to get that back to you. Also, we will also, from the pressure test that's been carried out by the contractor, actually detail the length of time the supply was pressurised up to, and what the test pressure is, duration, and whether it's a pass or a foul. If it's fouled, it would normally mean that there is a leak somewhere on that pipe, and then we would work through with you on site and our contractor to get that rectified. But once you've got your clear sample result and your passed pressure test certificate, that would then need to be forwarded on to developer services, and they would obviously review it, confirm that they're happy with the process and that everything is ready to be sent through to the planning team to programme that supply in. The only other thing I would say to you is just to ensure for your timing is that once you've got that criteria passed, developer services also have a guaranteed standard of 21 working days to get that connection programmed and installed for you. So if you've got any scheduling as to release of plots, etc., you just need to build that time frame into your process. So I think the key thing is you get so much documentation sent through, but the key thing is a pressure test chlorination required? If it is, you either get your own contractor to do it, or you can come to us and we'll do that service for you. Your sample result, once you get it, is only valid for 28 days. So you need to ensure that your pipe has been inspected, the chlorination and sampling process has been done, and that it isn't going to take over 28 days. Otherwise, you'd have to redo the pressure test chlorination again, resample, because the water regs wouldn't actually accept an out-of-date sample. So again, yeah, it's just timing from your part, when, you know, if and when a pressure test chlorination is required, ensuring you obviously get that service put in place either by us or others. Once you've got your clear documentation, that needs to go through to developer services, but from that point there is a 21-day guaranteed standard for getting that supply on for you. And I think that's it, and I will just hand you back to Andy. Thank you.
I was going to say, Josie, I've just got a quick question actually. So when you say you've got the 21 days to connect, and we've got the validity of the sampling result, is the 21 days within the validity of the sampling result, or is that on the back end of the sampling result?
That's totally separate. So okay. I think the point to get across is we need to get the time frame correct, with pipes being inspected and ready to go, and getting your sample result back. So your sample result is valid for 28 days. Then you will obviously submit your documentation to developer services, but from there, once they pass it and they're happy that it can be programmed, there is 21 days for them to physically connect that pipe. So
and that's working days as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and if the company doesn't within that time, it's not the developer's fault. It would be the water company's fault. Obviously, you don't want it to happen, but if it ran out within that time,
it wouldn't be on the developer themselves. It would be the water company.
That's my understanding. Yeah, obviously, again, all of this detail will be in the pack, but that's my understanding. They've got from the time it gets past to developer, then the 21 days starts. But yeah, to try and keep it within the validity of the chlorination, obviously, because it keeps everybody happy.
Brilliant. Josie, I can just see the blue screen. I don't know if you can click on the next one, or if you've already done it. Now our internet's just a bit slow today. We'll give a look at that first time. I like that. So what we've done is we've just put this slide up here for you, because, like as I mentioned earlier on, we're not the developer services team, and we will get treated like any other third party, even though technically we're part of the same company, and that's obviously due to the competition rules that are out there. So I think when I listen to what Josie and Rachel have said, is there's a couple of things that tend to pop up. One of them is sometimes, well, chlorination and pressure testing can sometimes be a last minute thing, as in it hasn't been realised that it needs to be carried out. So one thing that would definitely say is, if you have a site visit, make sure you ask the person who comes from the water company to your site to say, does this require a pressure and chlorination and pressure test? And if it does, then obviously remember that, mark it down, do what you need to do in your internal process to get that going. If nobody's come to site, you need to really read the pack and thoroughly look out. I know they can be quite long, so just bear in mind that it'll be in there if you need one, because the last thing we want is you not hitting your deadlines on getting those properties turned over. That's number one. And Josie's already pointed out that we've got potentially got a 21 working day connection point as well to add on to the back end of that. So if you don't realize until the last minute, and then we always try and move work and get it done because we understand you have deadlines. Sometimes we can get it in the next day, but we could never guarantee that we can get it in the next day. But then if you've then got another further 21 working days on the back end of that, just bear that bit in mind. The other thing is as well, we've had a couple of cases, haven't we, where we've arrived on site to do pressure and chlorination tests, and I think at one of them, one end of the pipe had been concreted over. So obviously that had to be dug up, and then we got the pressure and chlorination test, I think, completed on that day, and it passed. But then there was the expense of taking that out, putting it back in, and just the hassle, really. So make sure we can get access to the pipe. As Josie said on the form, we need a supply of water to be able to carry out these tests. So there's a box on the form to make sure you tick it to say that there is one there, but just be aware, if it's a Bowser or something like that, is it likely to go? Could it potentially be used up on the day that we come and there's no water in it? Just be aware of those sorts of things. And again, those timings on the sample results as well, because the last thing we want is to have to come out and retest something that passed first time, but it was missed by a delay. So they're probably the main points of where you can ensure that you're going to hit your targets and you're not going to end up getting sort of double charged for a service that was fine the first time round. And there's not much we can do about it because it's regulated by the sort of the water regs regulations. So just bear those bits in mind. So getting back to this slide, what I've done is I've took Northumbrian Water and Essex and Suffolk Water. Remember, this presentation is really kind of geared around those two areas of water company, because that's who we're familiar with. It could be completely different if you're dealing with UU or Thames or anybody else in the country, but it should be reasonably similar. I would imagine you'll probably have more experience in that than we do. But these are the contact details for we call it new development in the north and developer services in the south. I can't tell you why. We just do, probably to separate it internally, but those are the contact details for them. So if you've got any issues with your pack, you would go back to your developer services team. If we're doing your private site installations and or your chlorination pressure testing, come to us if there's any issues around that. And then basically once it's all been submitted and it's gone back to the developer services team and they've signed it off and said, yes, issue the connection, that then goes to another team, which is the planning team. So again, if it's at that point, you're kind of like, well, we haven't been connected yet and I need to know when it's going to get connected. If you came back to us, we wouldn't be able to tell you when that's going to happen because we don't have access to those systems. So again, it would be back to developer services and they would probably have to liaise with the planning team to just find out where things are for you. So that's when you would use them. If it's to do with sort of commercial works, you're looking for a pressure and chlorination test, or you want us to get involved nice and early on when you've got your pack to see about pricing up private installations, that's when you can contact Total Water Solutions, and that's all of our contact details on the bottom there. So you've got all of them. As I say, I'll send this slide out as part of the email that'll come after this anyway, just so you've got all them to hand. It just makes it a nice, easy sort of bit of paper you can have, or a file there where you can just quickly jump on and go, where's that number? So that should hopefully help you out. And that takes us to the end of the presentation. We haven't had any questions come through, and I think I'll probably asked a fair few myself. We try to keep these things to sort of half an hour if we can, so it looks like we finished just about on time. A couple of apologies for the slides taking a little bit longer to get up there, but if anybody wants a copy of the slides as well, you can drop an email to the tws@nwl.co.uk. You've probably already got my email. Send it to me and I'll make sure you get a copy of the slides as well. And as I said, this is being recorded, so what we'll do is we'll get this up on our website, and I'll send you the link for that as well, just in case there's somebody else, perhaps in your business, that you think might benefit from it. I think the only other thing to mention is when the webinar finishes, there'll be a screen that pops up. We've got a little questionnaire on there. It's 4 questions. It shouldn't take you more than like a minute and a bit. If you wouldn't mind filling that in, that does help us out with sort of just making sure that we're doing the things that you our customers want. There's no point us doing webinars and presentations if it doesn't serve a purpose for you. So if you've got any ideas and things, do just drop them down on there. But if you've got any questions after this at all, you can drop me an email, andrew.sinclair@nwl.co.uk, and I'll happily pick them up. Again, if you've got any questions that you didn't want to ask through this forum and afterwards, you can send them through to me. And if there's any that are even more developer related, like the developer services team related, feel free to send them through. We will get them through to the right team to get you an answer or get you a contact that you can speak to maybe get the answers that you need. So I think other than that, just a really big thank you for joining us. We do appreciate you spending your time with us, particularly if you were enjoying the frivolities of last night. So thank you very much, and we'll hope to see you soon. Bye.